The door swung open. Marcus Webb's hand froze on the handle. Elena Ashford stood there, half-dressed, silk blouse clutched to her chest, bare feet on marble. Their eyes locked. She didn't scream. She whispered 3 words that cut through the silence like a blade. "Don't come closer." But here's the thing, Marcus wasn't the threat. He was the witness to something far more dangerous. Someone had set him up. Someone had been watching her for months. And in 60 seconds, security would drag him away for a crime he didn't commit. What happened next? She saved him. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Marcus Webb had been invisible for 6 years. That was the deal he'd made with the universe after Sarah died. Keep your head down, do your job, pick up Sophie from school on time, and maybe, just maybe, life wouldn't take anything else from him. He was good at invisible. Invisible meant the executives on the upper floors never learned his name. Invisible meant no office politics, no drama, no complications. Just circuit boards and elevator panels, and the quiet satisfaction of fixing what others had broken. At 47, Marcus had made peace with his small life. A 2-bedroom apartment with a leaky ceiling, a 7-year-old daughter who still believed in unicorns, a mother who watched Sophie when he worked late. It wasn't much, but it was his. So when his supervisor handed him the work order that Tuesday morning, Marcus felt something he hadn't allowed himself in years. Hope. Technical support, 58th floor, VIP wing. His supervisor, a thick-necked man named Patterson, tapped the tablet screen. Some kind of electrical issue in room 58A. They specifically requested someone with elevator certification. Marcus frowned. The VIP wing, that's usually Henderson's territory. Henderson called in sick. Food poisoning. Patterson shrugged. You're up, Webb. Don't screw it up. The 58th floor. Marcus had never been above 40. The upper floors were a different world, a world of Italian marble and fresh flowers, and people who made more in a day than he made in a year. The thought of stepping into that world made his palms sweat. But extra hours meant extra money. Extra money meant he could finally fix the leak in Sophie's bedroom ceiling before winter. Before the mold got worse. Before his daughter started coughing again. I'll handle it, Marcus said. The elevator ride up felt longer than usual. Marcus watched the numbers climb 45, 50, 55, and tried to steady his breathing. He checked his reflection in the polished doors. Same tired eyes. Same calloused hands. Same blue work shirt with Webb stitched above the pocket. He didn't belong up here. Every cell in his body knew it. The doors opened onto a hallway that made him pause. The carpet was so thick his work boots sank into it. The walls were lined with artwork that probably cost more than his apartment. The silence was absolute, not the comfortable silence of an empty room, but the heavy silence of money. Marcus checked the work order again. Room 58A. He walked down the corridor, his footsteps muffled by the carpet, until he found the door. No nameplate. No indication of what lay beyond. He assumed it was an equipment closet or server room, something utilitarian hidden behind the elegant facade. He knocked once. Waited. No answer. Protocol said, wait 30 seconds, knock again. But the work order was marked urgent, and Patterson had made it clear, don't screw this up. Marcus turned the handle. The door swung open, and his entire world tilted on its axis. Elena Ashford stood in the center of the room. She was halfway between a formal dress and a white silk blouse. Her hair fell loose around her shoulders. Her feet were bare against the marble floor. She turned. Their eyes met. No scream, no fury, just a single crystallized moment of absolute shock, so complete that even the air seemed to hold its breath. Marcus's brain screamed at him to move, to apologize, to do something. But his body had disconnected from rational thought. He stood frozen in the doorway, hand still on the handle, like a man who had accidentally stepped into another dimension and couldn't find his way back. 3 seconds, stretched into eternity. Then, Elena's fingers moved, instinctively, protectively pulling the blouse closed across her chest. Her voice came out thin, barely above a whisper. "Don't come closer." It wasn't anger. Marcus recognized that immediately. It was something older. Something that had lived inside her for years. Fear. The word hit him like ice water. This woman, this billionaire who commanded boardrooms with a glance, was afraid of him. "I'm sorry." The words tumbled out in a rush. "The work order. I thought this was. I didn't know anyone was." But before he could finish, the sharp wail of an alarm cut through the air. The VIP room's unauthorized entry protocol had triggered automatically. Within seconds, heavy footsteps thundered down the corridor. 2 security guards appeared behind Marcus. Their faces were hard with professional suspicion. One of them grabbed his arm and shoved him against the wall with practiced efficiency. "Don't move." "I didn't do anything." Marcus's cheek pressed against the cold surface. "I was assigned here. Check the system. Check my work order. Save it." The second guard was already reaching for his radio. "Miss Ashford, do you want us to detain him? We can have him removed from the building permanently within the hour." Marcus felt his stomach drop. Removed permanently. Fired. No job, no insurance, no way to pay for Sophie's school or the medicine she needed when her asthma flared up. "Please." His voice cracked. "I have a daughter. I need this job. I swear I didn't know." "Quiet." The guard's grip tightened on his arm. Elena had finished buttoning her blouse. Her composure was returning in layers, like armor being reassembled piece by piece. She opened her mouth to respond, then stopped. Her gaze had dropped to the carpet near her wardrobe cabinet. Something was there. Something wrong. A scratch. Fresh. A thin line carved into the expensive fibers running parallel to the cabinet's base. It hadn't been there yesterday. She was certain of it. And it couldn't have been made by a man who had stood frozen in the doorway for less than 5 seconds. Elena looked at Marcus again. Really looked. His face was pale with genuine terror. Not the calculated fear of someone caught in a scheme, but the raw panic of a man who had stumbled into a nightmare he didn't understand. "Miss Ashford." The guard's voice was impatient. "Should we proceed with termination?" The silence stretched. Marcus held his breath. His career, his daughter's future. Everything hung on the next words out of this woman's mouth. Elena's eyes remained fixed on his face. She was searching for something. Not guilt. She had seen plenty of guilty men in her years running this company. They had a particular quality, a slipperiness around the edges of their expressions. Marcus Webb had none of that. What she saw instead was confusion, embarrassment, and underneath it all a desperate worry that had nothing to do with her and everything to do with someone else. Something else. Someone. "No." The word surprised even her. "Take him to the main security office. I want to review the full access logs before any decisions are made." The guards exchanged glances but didn't argue. They released Marcus's arm and escorted him down the hallway, his work boots squeaking against the polished floor. Marcus looked back once. Elena Ashford was standing in the doorway of room 58A watching him go. Her expression was unreadable, but something in her posture had shifted. She wasn't looking at him like a threat. She was looking at him like a puzzle. The security office was small and windowless. Marcus sat in a plastic chair, his hands clasped between his knees, watching the clock on the wall tick away the minutes. 45 minutes, an hour and 15. No one told him anything. Guards came and went, speaking in low voices, glancing at him with expressions that ranged from pity to suspicion. Someone brought him a cup of water. He didn't touch it. His phone was in his locker downstairs. He couldn't call his mother, couldn't tell her he might not pick up Sophie from school today. Couldn't explain that his entire life had just imploded because he opened the wrong door. The worst part wasn't the fear. It was the guilt. He should have waited longer. Should have knocked louder. Should have checked the work order more carefully. Should have. The door opened. Elena Ashford walked in. She had changed clothes, a black blazer over a gray blouse, her hair pulled back in a severe knot. She looked nothing like the vulnerable woman he had glimpsed an hour ago. She looked like exactly what she was, a billionaire who could end his career with a single word. The two guards who had been watching Marcus stood at attention. "Leave us," Elena said. "Ma'am, protocol requires—" "I said leave us." The guards exchanged another look, then filed out. The door closed behind them with a soft click. Elena pulled a chair across the floor and sat facing Marcus. Close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. Close enough that she could see every micro-expression on his face. "I'm going to ask you some questions," she said. "I need you to answer them honestly. Can you do that?" Marcus nodded. His throat was too dry for words. "Don't nod. Speak." "Yes." He cleared his throat. "Yes, I can do that." "Good." Elena leaned back slightly, crossing her legs. "Tell me exactly what happened from the beginning. Every detail. Don't leave anything out." So he did. The work order, the assumption about the equipment room, the knock that went unanswered, the decision to open the door. The moment he realized his mistake, the paralyzing horror that followed. Elena listened without interrupting. Her face gave nothing away. No anger, no sympathy, no indication of what she was thinking. When Marcus finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "You didn't know that room was mine," she said finally. It wasn't a question, but Marcus answered anyway. "No, I swear on my daughter's life I didn't know. The work order just said 58A technical support. I thought it was a server room or an equipment closet. I would never—" "I believe you." Marcus blinked. Of all the things he'd expected her to say, that wasn't one of them. You do? I've spent 15 years reading people in boardrooms, Mr. Webb. Liars have a particular quality. A rehearsed smoothness. You don't have it." She paused and something shifted in her expression. Something darker. "Also, the door was opened from the inside before you got there." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. "What? Someone was already in that room. Someone triggered the release mechanism before you arrived. Someone wanted you to walk in at that exact moment." Marcus stared at her. His mind was spinning, trying to make sense of what she was saying. "Someone set me up. Someone set us both up." Elena's voice was flat, controlled, but he could hear the steel beneath it. "I don't know why yet. I don't know who, but I intend to find out." She walked to the window and looked out at the city below. For a moment she seemed almost human, not a billionaire, not a CEO, just a woman carrying a weight she couldn't put down. "In the meantime," she said without turning around, "I need someone I can trust on that floor. Someone who isn't part of whatever game is being played. Someone who has no stake in company politics." She turned to face him. "Do you understand what I'm saying, Mr. Webb? You want me to stay after what happened? What happened wasn't your fault." Her eyes held his. "And frankly, your reaction told me more about your character than 100 background checks ever could." Marcus shook his head slowly. "I don't understand. I walked into a room where I didn't belong. I saw you." He stopped, his face flushing. "How can you possibly want me anywhere near that floor?" Elena walked back to her chair and sat down. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter, almost soft. A different kind of man would have tried to use what he saw, would have made excuses or offers or threats, would have calculated how to leverage the situation. She met his eyes. "You just stood there looking like you wanted the floor to swallow you whole." Marcus felt heat rise to his cheeks. "I really did want that." For the first time, something that might have been a smile flickered across Elena's face. Small, brief, but real. "I know," she said. "That's why you're still employed." The meeting lasted another 20 minutes. Elena explained the terms. Marcus would be transferred to the VIP floor as dedicated technical support. Same pay, better hours, direct access to the security systems. His official job would be maintaining the infrastructure. His unofficial job would be watching for anything suspicious. Someone compromised my security, Elena said. Someone who knows my schedule, my habits, my routines. Until I find out who I need eyes I can trust. Marcus listened, still half convinced he was dreaming. This morning, he'd been worried about a leaky ceiling. Now he was being recruited as some kind of informal security asset by a woman worth billions. "There's something I need," he said finally. Elena raised an eyebrow. "You're negotiating with me, that takes nerve, Mr. Webb." "My daughter, Sophie." Marcus's voice was steady, but his hands weren't. "She's 7. Sometimes my mom can't pick her up from school and I don't have anyone else. If this job means longer hours, I need flexibility. I need to be able to leave if she needs me." He expected resistance. In his experience, rich people didn't understand that some things mattered more than work. But Elena just nodded. "Done. Bring her here if you have to. I'll make sure security knows she's welcome." Marcus stared at her. "Just like that. Mr. Webb, I may not have children, but I understand priorities." Something flickered in her eyes, something almost like pain. "Your daughter comes first. That's not negotiable, for either of us." She stood signaling the end of the meeting. "Report to the 58th floor tomorrow at 8. Ask for Thomas Chen, he's the head of VIP security. He'll get you oriented." Marcus stood too. His legs felt unsteady, like he'd just stepped off a boat after a long voyage. "Miss Ashford." She paused at the door. "Thank you for believing me, for not—" He searched for the right words. "For not treating me like I was guilty until proven innocent." Elena was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Someone did that to me once. Assumed the worst. Didn't wait for the truth." Her hand rested on the door handle. "I learned how it feels. I try not to do it to others." She opened the door and was gone before Marcus could respond. He stood alone in the security office, his mind racing. The day had started with a work order and ended with what? A job offer. An alliance. Something he couldn't quite name. His phone. He needed to call his mother. Tell her everything was okay. Tell her he'd pick up Sophie on time after all. But as he walked to the elevator, one thought kept circling in his head. The door was opened from the inside. Someone had been in that room before him. Someone had wanted him to walk in at exactly the wrong moment. Someone had wanted Elena Ashford exposed, literally or figuratively. Who and why did he have done? Marcus's mother was waiting in the lobby when he finally retrieved his phone and called her. She had Sophie with her. The school had called when Marcus didn't show up, and Grandma Ruth had rushed to fill the gap. "Daddy!" Sophie launched herself at him the moment he stepped out of the elevator, her arms wrapped around his waist, her face pressed against his stomach. "Grandma said you had to work late. I drew you a picture at school. It's a dragon protecting a castle." Marcus knelt down and hugged her tight. Tighter than usual, long enough that Sophie pulled back and looked at him with concern. "Daddy, are you okay?" "I'm fine, sweetheart." He managed a smile. "Just had a long day. Let's go home." Ruth was watching him with sharp eyes. She was 72, but nothing got past her. After 50 years of marriage to a man who worked in construction, she could read worry on a face the way other people read newspapers. "What happened?" she asked quietly as they walked toward the exit. "Nothing, just a mix-up at work. It's sorted now." Liam Marcus Webb. She only used his full name when she knew he was lying. "I've been your mother for 47 years. Try again." Marcus glanced at Sophie, who was skipping ahead toward the revolving doors. "Later, Mom. I promise. When little ears aren't listening." Ruth pursed her lips but nodded. "Dinner at my place tonight. You'll talk then." It wasn't a question. That night, after Sophie was asleep in the spare bedroom at Ruth's apartment, Marcus sat at his mother's kitchen table, and told her everything. The work order, the door, Elena Ashford, the security investigation, the job offer. Everything except the part about seeing Elena half-dressed. Some things a man didn't tell his mother. Ruth listened without interruption, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had long gone cold. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "This woman," she said finally. "This Elena Ashford. You said she believed you, just like that." "Yeah. She said she could tell I wasn't lying." "And she offered you a job, a better job, on the spot." "Yeah." Ruth sipped her cold tea, her eyes never leaving his face. "Why?" Marcus frowned. "What do you mean, why?" "She said she needed someone she could trust." "Marcus." His mother set down her cup. "In 63 years, I've learned one thing about rich people. They don't do anything without a reason, and they don't trust anyone without a cost. You think she's playing me. I think there's something you're not seeing, or something she's not telling you." Ruth reached across the table and took his hand. "Be careful. That's all I'm saying. You've got Sophie to think about. You can't afford to get caught up in whatever game is being played in that tower." Marcus nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. He was thinking about the way Elena's voice had trembled when she said, "Don't come closer." The fear in her eyes. The scratch on the carpet that shouldn't have been there. The door was opened from the inside. Someone had been watching her. Someone had known exactly when she would be vulnerable. Someone had sent him into that room as a witness or a patsy. Why? The next morning, Marcus reported to the 58th floor at 7:45, 15 minutes early because that's who he was. Thomas Chen met him at the elevator. He was a compact man in his 50s with the quiet competence of someone who had seen everything and could handle anything. "Webb, right, Miss Ashford told me you'd be coming." Chen shook his hand with a grip that was firm but not aggressive. "Come on, I'll show you around." The VIP floor was even more impressive in daylight. The artwork Marcus had noticed yesterday turned out to be worth millions. Chen told him casually like it was no big deal. The conference rooms had bulletproof glass. The private offices had biometric locks. "Miss Ashford's suite is at the end of the hall," Chen said. "Room 58A is her private changing room, adjacent to her main office, off limits to everyone except her personal assistant and cleaning staff." Marcus nodded, his jaw tight. "The work order I got yesterday, it said 58A, technical support." Chen's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "I know. I pulled the logs this morning." He lowered his voice. "That work order wasn't generated by our system, Webb. It was injected from outside. Someone used a deactivated employee account to create it." Marcus felt cold. So it was definitely a setup. "Looks like it." Chen glanced around, making sure they weren't overheard. "Miss Ashford asked me to keep this quiet. Official story is the work order was a system glitch. But between you and me, someone's playing a dangerous game." "Who?" Chen shook his head. "That's what we're trying to find out. In the meantime, you report anything unusual directly to me. Anything. Understand?" "Yes, sir." Chen studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Miss Ashford trusts you. That's rare. Don't make her regret it." He walked away, leaving Marcus alone in the corridor. Marcus looked down the hall toward room 58A. The door was closed, innocent-looking. Just a door. Just a room. But behind that door, something had started. Something that would change everything. He just didn't know it yet. The first week was uneventful. Marcus settled into a routine, checking systems, running diagnostics, monitoring the security infrastructure that someone had compromised. He saw Elena Ashford only in passing, a glimpse of her walking to a meeting. A brief nod in the elevator, nothing more. She was different on her own turf. Colder, more controlled. The vulnerability he had glimpsed in that first moment was locked away behind walls of steel. But sometimes when she didn't know he was watching, Marcus caught something else. A weariness around her eyes. A tension in her shoulders that never quite relaxed. The careful way she positioned herself in rooms always near an exit, always with her back to a wall. He recognized those habits. He had seen them in veterans coming back from war zones, in survivors of things they couldn't talk about. Elena Ashford was surviving something. He just didn't know what. On Friday, Patterson called Marcus's cell at 2 in the afternoon. "Webb, we've got a problem." Marcus's heart dropped. "What kind of problem?" "Your mother called. Something about a doctor's appointment. She can't pick up your daughter from school." Marcus checked the time. Sophie's school let out at 3. The 58th floor was 40 minutes from her school in good traffic. "I need to leave early." Miss Ashford authorized it. She said. Patterson paused, and Marcus could hear the confusion in his voice. "She said to tell you to bring your daughter back here if you need to, that there's a conference room she can use." Marcus blinked. "She said that, word for word. I don't know what's going on up there, Webb, but whatever you're doing, keep doing it." Marcus made it to Sophie's school with 3 minutes to spare. She ran to him with her backpack bouncing, her face lit up with the uncomplicated joy of a child who didn't know how close her father had come to losing everything. "Daddy, guess what? I got a gold star in reading today." "That's amazing, sweetheart." He scooped her up, holding her tight. "I'm so proud of you." "Are we going home?" Marcus hesitated. "Actually, we need to go back to Daddy's work for a little while. Is that okay? There's a room where you can draw." Sophie's eyes went wide. "The big building? With all the shiny floors?" "That's the one." "Can I see the top? Can I see the whole city?" "We'll see, sweetheart. We'll see." What? The security guard in the lobby looked skeptical when Marcus walked in with a 7-year-old, but a quick call to Thomas Chen cleared them through. They rode the elevator up to 58, Sophie pressing her nose against the glass walls, watching the city shrink below them. "It's like being a bird," she whispered. "A really high-up bird." "The highest," Marcus agreed. The conference room Chen directed them to was bigger than Marcus's apartment. A massive whiteboard covered one entire wall. Sophie's eyes went round. Daddy, can I draw on that? That's what it's for, sweetheart." He got her settled with markers, made sure she had her snack and her water bottle, and promised to check on her every 15 minutes. Then he went back to work, his mind half on security diagnostics and half on his daughter, 3 doors down, drawing castles on a whiteboard bigger than any canvas she'd ever seen. An hour later, Marcus was deep in a systems log when he heard footsteps stop outside his workstation. He looked up. Elena Ashford stood in the doorway. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. "Mr. Webb, I heard your daughter is here." Marcus stood quickly. "Yes, ma'am. My mother had an appointment and I didn't have anyone else. I hope that's—" "I told you it was fine." Elena cut him off, but not unkindly. "I came to meet her, if that's all right with you." Marcus blinked. "You want to meet Sophie? Is that a problem?" "No, I just—" He shook his head. "She's in conference room B. Fair warning, she's probably covered in marker by now." Something that might have been amusement flickered across Elena's face. "I think I can handle it." They walked down the hall together. Marcus wasn't sure what to expect. Elena Ashford was a woman who negotiated billion-dollar deals. What would she make of a 7-year-old with marker-stained fingers? He opened the door to conference room B. Sophie had covered nearly a quarter of the whiteboard with an elaborate castle. There were towers with flags, a moat with a sea monster, a dragon circling overhead, and in the center, a princess with long hair standing on a balcony. Sophie looked up when they entered, her face breaking into a delighted grin. "Daddy, look what I made." "I see it, sweetheart. It's beautiful." But Sophie's attention had already shifted to the woman standing beside her father. Her eyes went wide. "You're the pretty hair lady," she said. Elena blinked. "I'm sorry." "From before. When you walked past the big window. I saw you. Sophie pointed at her own head. Your hair is pretty. It's like a princess. For a moment, Elena seemed completely thrown. Marcus had seen her face down hostile board members without flinching. But a 7-year-old's compliment had caught her off guard. Thank you, she said finally. That's very kind. Sophie beamed. Do you want to see my castle? This is the tower for the princess, and this is the tower for the brave knight, and this is the tower for the princess's best friend, because everyone needs a best friend. Elena walked closer to the whiteboard. Her eyes moved over Sophie's drawing with an intensity that surprised Marcus. She wasn't humoring a child, she was really looking. It's beautiful, Elena said quietly. You're a real artist. Thank you. Sophie bounced on her heels. Can I draw you sometime? Your hair would be really fun to draw. All the swirls. Elena's expression shifted, softened. For just a moment, Marcus saw something behind the steel walls. Something almost like longing. Maybe someday, Elena said. I'd like that. She stayed for 20 minutes. She asked Sophie about school, about her favorite colors, about the story behind the castle. Sophie chattered away, completely unintimidated by the billionaire in the expensive blazer. Kids didn't see money or power. They just saw people. And whatever Sophie saw in Elena Ashford, she liked it. When Elena finally left, she paused at the door. Mr. Webb? Yes. She's wonderful. Elena's voice was quiet, almost wistful. You're lucky. She was gone before Marcus could respond. On the drive home, Sophie was quiet. Unusual for her normally, she talked non-stop about her day, her drawings, her friends, everything and nothing. Daddy? She said finally. Yes, sweetheart. Is that lady lonely? Marcus gripped the steering wheel. What makes you say that? She looked at my castle the way you look at pictures of Mommy. Sophie's voice was matter-of-fact, the way children are when they say devastating things. Like she's remembering something that makes her happy and sad at the same time. Marcus didn't have an answer for that, but he thought about it for a long time after Sophie fell asleep. Happy and sad at the same time. Yeah, he knew that feeling. He knew it very well. 2 weeks passed. Marcus learned the rhythms of the 58th floor, the way he had once learned the rhythms of the lower levels, quietly, carefully paying attention to the things other people missed. He learned that Elena Ashford arrived at 7:15 every morning and rarely left before 9 at night. He learned that she took her coffee, black at lunch at her desk, and spent most of her meetings standing rather than sitting. He learned that she positioned herself near exits, kept her back to walls, and flinched at sudden sounds. Tiny reactions that most people would never notice. He noticed. Thomas Chen called him into the security office on a Tuesday afternoon. The room was cramped, filled with monitors showing feeds from cameras throughout the building. Chen was standing in front of a screen, his face grim. Close the door, Chen said. Marcus did. We found something. Chen tapped the keyboard, and a video feed appeared on the screen. This is the hallway outside room 58A on the day you walked in. Watch the timestamp. Marcus watched. For 30 seconds, the hallway was empty. Then the image flickered. Static. A clean break in the feed that lasted exactly 52 seconds. Someone cut the camera, Marcus said. Not just cut it, edited it. See how the timestamp jumps. Chen pointed at the corner of the screen. Whoever did this knew exactly when Miss Ashford would be in that room. They created a window of invisibility. So someone was in the room before me. Someone was in the room, waited for you to arrive, and slipped out during the confusion after the alarm triggered. Chen turned to face him. We pulled the access logs. The door was opened from the inside at 14:07. You didn't arrive until 14:08. Marcus felt cold. They wanted me to walk in at that exact moment. They wanted Miss Ashford exposed. You were just the fall guy." Chen's voice was flat. "The question is who? And why? Have you told her?" "I'm telling her in 20 minutes. She asked me to brief you first." Chen studied him for a moment. "She trusts you, Webb. I'm still trying to figure out why." "I don't know either," Marcus admitted. "Fair enough." Chen turned back to the monitors. "There's something else. The deactivated account that was used to generate your work order, it belonged to a guy named David Mercer. He was a senior IT administrator here until 3 years ago. What happened to him? Fired. Something about unauthorized access to executive files." Chen's jaw tightened. "He died 6 months later. Car accident. Single vehicle late at night, no witnesses." The room felt smaller suddenly, colder. "You think someone's using a dead man's credentials," Marcus said. "I think someone's been planning this for a long time." Chen met his eyes. "Watch yourself, Webb, and watch her. Whatever game is being played here, it's not over." Elena was waiting in her office when Marcus arrived for the briefing. She was standing by the window, her back to the door silhouetted against the city lights. "Mr. Webb, come in. Close the door." Marcus did. The click of the latch seemed louder than it should have been. "Chen told you what we found?" "Yes." Elena turned. Her face was calm, controlled, but Marcus could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands were clasped too tightly in front of her. "Someone's been watching me," she said. "Someone who knows my schedule, my habits. Someone who's been planning this for months, maybe years. The IT guy, Mercer. Chen said he died." "He did, but someone has his access codes." Elena walked to her desk, but didn't sit. "Whoever set this up wanted me vulnerable. They wanted a witness. They wanted—" She stopped. Her jaw tightened. "They wanted what?" Marcus asked quietly. For a long moment, Elena didn't answer. Then she walked past him to the door, checked the hallway, and closed it again. "What I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room." "Okay." "I mean it, Mr. Webb. Not your mother, not your daughter, not anyone." "I understand." Elena took a breath, then another. When she spoke, her voice was different, quieter, older. 3 years ago, I was at an industry conference, a tech summit in San Francisco. I was one of the keynote speakers. Marcus waited. There was a shared changing area for speakers, private supposedly. I was getting ready for my presentation when someone came in. Her hands had curled into fists at her sides. A man I had worked with for years, someone I trusted, someone I had considered a friend. The air in the room changed. Marcus felt it pressing against his chest. He decided he was entitled to something I had never offered. Elena's voice was steady, but her knuckles were white. He didn't succeed, not completely, but he succeeded enough. Marcus didn't move, didn't speak. He understood suddenly why she had frozen when he opened that door, why her first instinct had been fear, not anger, why she positioned herself near exits and kept her back to walls. "I never reported it," Elena continued. "He was too connected, too powerful. It would have been my word against his, and I knew how that story ended." She met his eyes. "So I buried it, moved on, built walls, told myself I was fine." "But you're not fine." "No." The word was barely a whisper. "I'm not fine." The silence stretched between them. Marcus wanted to say something, anything, but every word felt inadequate. "The person who set you up," Elena said finally. "They know about San Francisco. They have to. The timing, the location. The way it was designed to catch me vulnerable, exposed alone with a man I didn't expect." Her voice hardened. "This wasn't random. This was calculated. Someone is trying to break me, Mr. Webb. And I need to find out who before they succeed." "What can I do?" Elena looked at him. Really looked the way she had that first day in the security office. You can keep watching, keep listening, and if you see anything at all that seems wrong, you come to me directly. Not Chen, not anyone else, me. I will. And Mr. Webb? Yes. Thank you for not looking at me differently. Her voice cracked just slightly before she caught it. Most people do once they know. They look at me like I'm broken, like I'm fragile, like they need to be careful around me. You're not broken, Marcus said. You're still standing. After everything, you're still here. That's not fragile. That's the strongest thing I've ever seen. Elena was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was barely audible. I'm glad you opened that door, Mr. Webb. I know that sounds strange, but I'm glad it was you. She turned back to the window, and Marcus understood he was dismissed. He walked to the door, his hand on the handle, when her voice stopped him. Marcus! He turned. She had never used his first name before. The man from San Francisco. His name was Richard Vance. Her eyes were fixed on the city lights. He's on my board of directors now. Has been for 2 years. The door felt heavy in Marcus's hand. He's here. In this building. Not often, but yes, he's here. Elena's reflection in the window was ghost-like translucent. And I smile at him in meetings, shake his hand, pretend nothing happened, because that's what survivors do, Mr. Webb. We pretend. Marcus left without another word, but the name burned in his mind like a brand. Richard Vance. He would remember it. The weeks that followed were tense. Marcus threw himself into his work monitoring security systems with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Every anomaly, every glitch, every unexpected access attempt, he logged it, analyzed it, reported it to Elena directly. They developed a routine. Every evening at 6, Marcus would stop by her office with a summary of the day's findings. Most days, there was nothing significant. But the meetings continued anyway, stretching from 5 minutes to 10 to 20. They talked about security, about the investigation, about the frustrating lack of progress in identifying who was behind the setup. But they also talked about other things. Elena asked about Sophie, about Ruth, about Sarah, Marcus's wife, dead 3 years now from the cancer that had eaten her from the inside out. I'm sorry, Elena said the first time he told her. I didn't know. Why would you? It's not in my employee file. How old was Sophie when it happened? 4. She doesn't remember much, just that Mommy was sick and then Mommy was gone. Marcus's voice was steady, but his hands weren't. Sometimes I'm grateful for that she doesn't remember the worst parts. And sometimes I hate it, because she's forgetting her mother piece by piece, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. Elena was quiet for a long moment. I lost my father when I was 12, she said finally. Heart attack. No warning. He was there at breakfast, and by dinner, he was gone. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. She paused. But I still remember exactly what he smelled like. Old Spice and coffee and something else I could never identify. I'd forgotten his voice by the time I was 15. Forgotten his face by 20. But I never forgot how he smelled. She looked at Marcus with something like recognition. Grief is strange that way. The things we keep. The things we lose. Yeah, Marcus said. It is. The conversation shifted after that. Something had opened between them, a door neither of them had meant to unlock. They were no longer just employer and employee, investigator and witness. They were two people who understood loss. Two people who had learned to carry weight alone. It wasn't romance. Marcus wouldn't have called it that. It was something quieter, deeper. The recognition of a kindred spirit. But it was dangerous. He knew that. The lines between them were already blurred. Every evening meeting, every shared confidence, every moment of vulnerability, They were building something neither of them could afford. He should have stepped back, should have maintained professional distance, should have remembered that she was a billionaire, and he was a maintenance worker, and the gap between their worlds was too vast to bridge. He didn't step back. Neither did she. Sophie came to the office again 3 weeks after the first time. Ruth had another appointment, and Marcus had no choice. This time, Elena was waiting for them. "Sophie." She knelt down to the girl's eye level the way she had before. "I heard you're coming to visit today. I had them set up the big conference room with the good markers. The ones that don't dry out." Sophie's face lit up. "The whole wall. The whole wall. And when you're done, I want to see what you made." She spent 2 hours with Sophie that afternoon. Not just checking in. Actually sitting with her, asking about her drawings, listening to her stories about school and friends and the cat she wanted, but Daddy said they couldn't afford. Marcus watched from the doorway, something tightening in his chest. Elena was different with Sophie. Softer. More present. The armor she wore with everyone else seemed to dissolve in the presence of a 7-year-old with marker-stained fingers. "She drew a unicorn protecting the castle this time," Elena told him later in her office. "A unicorn with wings and a sword. She said it was for fighting the bad guys who try to hurt the princess. She has a big imagination. She has a good heart." Elena's voice was quiet. "You're raising her well, Marcus. She's kind. In my experience, kindness is rare." "She gets it from her mother." "I doubt that." Elena met his eyes. "I think she gets it from you." Marcus didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. But something warm settled in his chest, and it stayed there long after he left. The storm came on a Thursday. The forecast had predicted rain, but what arrived was something else entirely. A wall of black clouds rolling in from the east, lightning splitting the sky every few seconds, thunder so loud it shook the windows. Marcus was running diagnostics on the backup generators when the power failed. The lights flickered once, twice, and then died entirely. Emergency strips along the baseboards glowed red for a moment, then those went dark too. The silence was absolute. No hum of ventilation. No distant elevator chimes. Just the rain hammering against the windows, and the darkness pressing in from all sides. Marcus pulled out his phone and switched on the flashlight. The generator room was 2 floors down. He should go there, check the systems, figure out what had failed. But something made him turn toward the executive wing instead. An instinct, a whisper of worry he couldn't explain. He found her in conference room B. The door's electronic lock had engaged when the power failed, trapping her inside. He could hear her through the heavy wood, not screaming, not calling for help, just breathing, fast, shallow, the ragged rhythm of barely contained terror. "Elena." He kept his voice calm, steady. "It's Marcus. Can you hear me?" No response, just that rapid breathing. "I'm going to get you out. Give me 1 minute." He found the manual override panel beside the doorframe and pried it open with his multi-tool. Emergency release. He pulled the lever, heard the lock disengage, and pushed the door open. The flashlight beam found her in the corner. Elena Ashford, billionaire CEO woman who commanded boardrooms with a glance, was pressed against the wall with her knees drawn to her chest, her eyes squeezed shut, her whole body trembling. Marcus understood immediately. The darkness. The trapped space. The loss of control. Every trigger her trauma had installed was firing at once. He approached slowly the way you would approach a wounded animal. "Elena, it's me. You're safe. No one's going to hurt you." Her eyes opened, but they weren't seeing him. They were seeing something else entirely. Some other room. Some other darkness. Some other man who hadn't meant her well. "I can't." Her voice was a thread. "I can't breathe. I can't." Marcus knelt in front of her. Slowly giving her time to pull away, he placed his hands on her shoulders. The contact seemed to anchor her, draw her back from wherever her mind had gone. Look at me, he said quietly. Just look at me. You're in Ashford Tower. You're on the 58th floor. The power's out, but that's all. Just a blackout. Nothing else. Her eyes focused on his face. Her breathing began to slow. That's it. In and out. Just breathe. I've got you. They stayed like that for a long time. The rain continued to pound against the windows. Thunder rolled across the sky. But inside that dark room, there was only the circle of flashlight glow and two people learning to trust each other. When Elena finally spoke, her voice was steadier. I'm sorry, I haven't had an episode like that in months. I thought I was past this. You don't have to apologize. Marcus's hands were still on her shoulders. He hadn't noticed until now that he was still holding her. He also hadn't noticed that she hadn't asked him to let go. Trauma doesn't follow a schedule, he said. It shows up when it wants. Elena let out a breath that was almost a laugh. My therapist says the same thing. I like it better when you say it. Why? Because you mean it. She looked at him in the dim light. You actually understand. I had nightmares for a year after Sarah died. Couldn't sleep in our bedroom. Couldn't look at her clothes. Couldn't hear her favorite song without falling apart. Marcus's voice was quiet. Grief and trauma, they're not that different. They both rewire your brain. They both show up when you least expect them. Elena was silent for a moment. Then she reached up and placed her hand over his, where it still rested on her shoulder. I'm not afraid of you, she said finally. I just realized that. You're the first man in years I've been alone with in the dark, and I'm not afraid. The words hung in the air between them. Heavy, significant. Marcus should have pulled back. Should have remembered the lines between them. Should have said something professional and appropriate. Instead, he said, I'm not afraid either. The flashlight flickered. The storm raged outside. And in the darkness of Conference Room B, something shifted between them that could never be unshifted. The power came back on 20 minutes later. The lights flickered to life, harsh and sudden after so long in the dark. Elena pulled away, standing, smoothing her clothes, reassembling the armor she wore with everyone else. Thank you, she said. Her voice was professional again, controlled. But her eyes told a different story. Anytime. I mean it, Marcus. She held his gaze. Thank you for not treating me like I was broken. You're not broken. No. She almost smiled. I'm starting to believe that. Marcus walked back to his workstation, his mind spinning. The blackout, the panic attack, the way her hand had felt over his, the words she had said. I'm not afraid of you. He had meant what he said. He wasn't afraid either. Not of being close to her, not of wanting to protect her. But he was afraid of something else now. He was afraid of how much he was starting to feel. The days after the blackout were different. Marcus felt it in the way Elena looked at him now, not as an employee, not as an asset, but as something else. Something neither of them had named. Their evening meetings continued, but the professional distance had evaporated. They talked about the investigation, yes, but they also talked about everything else. Childhood memories, regrets, dreams they had abandoned. The small, quiet things that people only share with those they trust. Marcus found himself looking forward to 6 o'clock in a way he hadn't looked forward to anything in years. The walk down the corridor to her office. The moment she looked up from her desk and something in her face softened. The hour they spent together, sometimes talking, sometimes just sitting in comfortable silence. It was dangerous. He knew that. But knowing and stopping were two different things. Sophie noticed the change first. Daddy, you smile more now, she said one evening while he was tucking her into bed. Do I? Uh-huh. Like before. Like when Mommy was here. Marcus's chest tightened. I'm just happy, sweetheart. Work is going well. Is it because of the pretty hair lady? He didn't answer. But Sophie was 7, not stupid. She grinned up at him with her mother's knowing smile. I like her, Sophie said. She listens when I talk. Most grown-ups don't really listen. They just wait for me to stop. She's a good listener, Marcus agreed. She's lonely, though. I can tell. Sophie's voice was matter-of-fact. But I think she's less lonely now. I think we help. Marcus kissed her forehead and turned off the light, but her words stayed with him long after she fell asleep. I think we help. Maybe they did. Maybe that was dangerous too. 3 weeks after the blackout, Marcus arrived at work to find Thomas Chen waiting by his workstation. The security chief's face was grim. We need to talk. My office. Now. Marcus followed him without question. Chen's tone left no room for discussion. The security office was crowded with monitors, all showing different feeds from throughout the building. Chen closed the door and turned to face him. We found something. His voice was low. Something bad. The investigation. Worse. Chen pulled up a file on his computer. Someone's been accessing the executive floor security feeds remotely. Unauthorized access routed through 3 different proxy servers. We finally traced it back to a device inside the building. Inside? You mean someone who works here? Someone on the board. Chen's jaw was tight. The device was registered to an office on the 60th floor, board member suite. Marcus felt cold. Which board member? Chen hesitated. Then he said a name that made Marcus's blood freeze. Richard Vance. The man from San Francisco. The one Elena had told him about. The one who had, are you sure? The digital fingerprint matches. Whoever's been watching Miss Ashford, whoever set up that day in room 58A, it's coming from Vance's network. Chen's voice was hard. He's been monitoring her for months, maybe years. Marcus gripped the edge of the desk. Does she know? I'm telling her in an hour. I wanted you to know first. Chen studied him. You've gotten close to her web. I've seen it. Whatever's going on between you two, you need to understand what we're dealing with. Vance isn't just a board member. He's connected, powerful. If we go after him without solid proof, he'll destroy us, all of us. So what do? We gather evidence, we document everything, and we wait for him to make a mistake. The mistake came sooner than anyone expected. The quarterly board meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Elena had been preparing for it for weeks. Financial reports, strategic projections, the usual corporate theater. Marcus had watched her rehearse her presentation, had seen the steel in her spine as she prepared to face a room full of people who held her company's future in their hands. A room that included Richard Vance. Are you going to be okay? Marcus asked her the night before the meeting. Elena was standing by her office window, her reflection ghost-like against the city lights. I've been facing him for 2 years, smiling at him, shaking his hand, pretending nothing happened. That's not what I asked. She turned. Her eyes were tired, but her jaw was set. I'll be fine. I'm always fine. Elena, I know what you're going to say. She held up a hand. I know. But this is how it has to be. Until we have proof, real proof, I can't afford to show weakness. He'll use it against me. What if there was another way? There isn't. Her voice was flat. Trust me. I've thought about this for 3 years. There's no scenario where I come out ahead by confronting him, not without evidence, not without witnesses. She paused. Not without destroying myself in the process. Marcus wanted to argue, wanted to tell her that she didn't have to face this alone, but he knew she was right. In the world she inhabited, truth wasn't enough. You needed power, you needed leverage, you needed proof. Without those things, you had nothing but a story no one wanted to believe. I'll be watching the security feeds during the meeting, he said finally. If anything seems wrong, I know. Elena almost smiled. You'll come running. That's my job. Is it? She held his gaze. Is that what this is? A job? Marcus didn't answer. They both knew the truth. The board meeting started at 9. Marcus watched from the security office, his eyes fixed on the monitor showing the conference room. Elena sat at the head of the table, flanked by her executive team. Around her, 12 board members reviewed their materials and made small talk. Richard Vance sat 3 seats to her left. He was a handsome man in his late 50s, silver-haired and confident, with the easy charm of someone who had never been told no. He smiled at Elena when she entered. She smiled back. Watching it made Marcus sick. The first hour was routine: financial reports, market analysis, strategic initiatives. Elena handled it all with the smooth professionalism Marcus had come to expect. She was good at this: the corporate performance, the polished presentation, the careful dance of power. Then the vice chairman, a man named Harrison Wells, cleared his throat. "Before we continue, there's a matter that's been brought to my attention. I believe it requires the board's immediate consideration." Elena's expression didn't change, but Marcus saw her shoulders tense. "What matter?" Wells reached into his folder and pulled out a photograph. He held it up so the room could see. Marcus's heart stopped. The image was grainy, clearly taken with a phone camera in low light. But there was no mistaking what it showed. Marcus Webb, with his arms around Elena Ashford, her face pressed against his shoulder. The darkness of Conference Room B surrounding them both. The blackout. Someone had been watching. Someone had been waiting. "This was sent anonymously to several board members this morning," Wells said. His voice was carefully neutral, but his eyes were sharp. "It appears to show our CEO in a compromising position with a maintenance worker." The silence in the room was deafening. Marcus watched Elena's face on the monitor. She had gone pale, but her expression remained composed. Her hands, hidden beneath the table, were clenched into fists. "I'm sure there's an explanation," Wells continued. "But given recent concerns about company image, I think we need to address this directly." "Where did you get this?" Elena's voice was steady. "As I said, it was sent anonymously. And you chose to bring it to a board meeting, without speaking to me first. The integrity of company leadership is a board matter." Wells's tone was sanctimonious. "Perhaps you'd like to explain the context." Marcus watched the board members' faces. Some looked uncomfortable, others looked hungry, and Richard Vance was watching Elena with an expression that made Marcus want to put his fist through the screen. Satisfaction. That's what it was. The quiet satisfaction of a predator watching its prey stumble into a trap. He did this. Marcus was certain of it now. Vance had orchestrated everything. The setup in room 58A. The photograph. The anonymous delivery. All of it designed to destroy Elena without getting his own hands dirty. On the monitor, Elena was silent. The board waited. She had 2 choices. Marcus could see them both playing out in his mind. She could minimize. Spin some story about professional boundaries and unfortunate optics. Throw Marcus under the bus to protect herself. Sacrifice him to survive. Or she could tell the truth. All of it. The trauma she had hidden. The vulnerability she had never shown. The reason a man's arms around her in the dark was not a scandal, but a lifeline. Marcus watched her face, watched the war behind her eyes. "Please," he thought. "Please don't protect me. Not like this." Elena stood. "I'll explain," she said. Her voice was quiet but clear. "But not to protect myself. To protect someone who doesn't deserve to be dragged into whatever game is being played here." She looked around the room, meeting each board member's eyes in turn. 3 years ago, I was at an industry conference. I was preparing for a keynote speech in a shared changing area when a man I trusted, a colleague, someone I had known for years, decided he was entitled to something I never offered. The room went still. He didn't succeed completely, but he succeeded enough. Elena's voice didn't waver. He left marks that took months to fade. He left scars that will never fade. And I never reported it because I knew how that story ended. His word against mine. His power against my credibility. I buried it and moved on. Marcus watched Richard Vance's face. The satisfaction had drained away, replaced by something harder. Wariness. Fear. Ever since then, Elena continued, I've had what therapists call hypervigilance. Closed doors trigger panic. Unexpected sounds make me freeze. Being alone with men I don't trust makes my body react before my brain can catch up. She picked up the photograph from the table. This image was taken during a blackout 3 weeks ago. A power failure trapped me in a conference room. The darkness, the locked door, the loss of control, every trigger I have fired at once. I had a panic attack, a severe one. She looked at the photograph, then set it down. The man in this image found me. He talked me through it. He stayed with me until I could breathe again. He did nothing inappropriate. He showed compassion to someone in crisis. And if this board decides to punish him for that, you'll have my resignation within the hour. No one moved. No one spoke. Elena's eyes swept the room again, and this time they landed on Richard Vance. Furthermore, I want to know who took this photograph, because whoever did has been monitoring my movements without authorization. That's a security breach I intend to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. Something flickered across Vance's face, too quick to catch, but Marcus saw it. Fear. This meeting is adjourned, Elena said. When we reconvene, I expect a formal apology to be issued to Mr. Webb for the damage this photograph has caused to his reputation. She gathered her materials and walked toward the door. As she moved, her sleeve caught on the edge of the table. For just a moment, the edge of a bruise was visible against her collarbone. Faded. Old. But unmistakable. The board members saw it. Their faces changed. Elena didn't look back. She walked out of the room with her head high, leaving silence in her wake. Marcus was waiting outside her office when she arrived. He didn't know what to say. What words could possibly be adequate for what she had just done? You heard, Elena said. It wasn't a question. I watched. The security feed. Of course you did. She unlocked her door and walked inside. He followed. The office felt different now. Smaller. More intimate. Like the walls had drawn closer together. You didn't have to do that, Marcus said. Defend me like that. Tell them about... Yes, I did. Elena's voice was fierce. They were going to crucify you for being kind to me, for helping me when I was falling apart. I refused to let that happen. But your reputation, your privacy, everything you told them, was the truth. She turned to face him. I'm tired of hiding, Marcus. I'm tired of pretending. I've spent 3 years building walls and all it's done is trap me inside them. Elena, do you know what I thought when Wells held up that photograph? She stepped closer. I thought they're going to take him away from me. This man who sees me really sees me and isn't afraid. They're going to punish him for helping me, and I'll be alone again. Her voice cracked. I couldn't let that happen. I don't care about my reputation. I don't care what the board thinks. The only thing I care about... She stopped. Her eyes were bright with tears she refused to let fall. The only thing you care about, what? Marcus asked quietly. You. The word was barely a whisper. I care about you. And I know I shouldn't. I know there are 1,000 reasons why this is impossible. But I can't stop. I've tried, and I can't. Marcus closed the distance between them. His hands found her shoulders the way they had in the dark of Conference Room B. I'm not going anywhere, he said. You didn't make a mistake. You trusted the right person. How do you know? Because I feel the same way. He held her gaze. I've been trying to pretend this is just a job, just professional concern. But it's not. It hasn't been for a long time. Elena let out a breath that was half laugh, half sob. We're both terrible at this, she said. Yeah, we are. For a moment they just stood there, close enough to touch, close enough to close the gap entirely. Then Elena's phone rang. She stepped back, wiping her eyes, and answered it. Marcus watched her face change as she listened. When? She said. How much? Yes, I understand. We'll be right there. She hung up. That was Chen, she said. They found something. A device hidden in Vance's office, recording equipment. They're pulling the files now. The evidence they needed. Finally. Let's go, Marcus said. They walked together toward the security office. Whatever was coming next, they would face it together. The security office was crowded when they arrived. Chen stood at the main console flanked by 2 technicians. On the screens, data scrolled past files, timestamps, logs. Show me, Elena said. Chen pulled up a video file. This was stored on the device we recovered. There are dozens more like it. He hit play. The footage showed Elena's private changing room. Room 58A. The angle was high hidden, capturing everything. Months of footage. Elena changing clothes. Elena checking her phone. Elena alone vulnerable, unaware she was being watched. Marcus felt rage building in his chest. Cold, controlled rage. How long? Elena's voice was flat. At least 18 months, maybe longer. Chen's jaw was tight. The device was connected to a server registered to an offshore company. We traced the company back to a shell corporation and that shell corporation back to Richard Vance, Elena finished. Yes. Elena was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was ice. Where is he now? He left the building after the board meeting. His assistant says he has a flight booked for Geneva tonight. Running. The coward was running. Call the FBI, Elena said. And our legal team. I want warrants issued before he reaches the airport. Already done. Chen almost smiled. I took the liberty. They're picking him up in approximately 20 minutes. Elena nodded. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. 18 months, she said quietly. He's been watching me for 18 months, planning this, waiting for the perfect moment to destroy me. Why? Marcus asked. What did he want? Control. Elena's voice was bitter. He's wanted control since San Francisco. When I didn't break, when I didn't give him what he wanted, he decided to take it another way. Humiliate me, expose me, force me out of my own company. But you didn't break. No. She turned to look at him. I didn't. Because of you. Marcus didn't know what to say. So he did the only thing that made sense. He took her hand. Elena looked down at their intertwined fingers. Then she looked up at him. I told the board the truth today, she said. All of it. Everything I've been hiding. I know. I'm not hiding anymore. From anyone. She squeezed his hand. Including myself. Marcus understood what she was saying. The walls were down. All of them. Not just around her trauma, but around her heart. I'm not going anywhere, he said again. Whatever comes next, I'm here. Promise. Promise. Chen cleared his throat. I hate to interrupt, but the FBI is online too. They need to speak with you, Miss Ashford. Elena squeezed Marcus's hand one more time, then let go. Put them through, she said. She walked to the phone, her back straight, her head high. The woman who had faced down a boardroom. The woman who had told the truth when lies would have been easier. The woman who had stopped hiding. Marcus watched her, and something settled in his chest. They had found the enemy. They had proof. Richard Vance would face justice for what he had done, not just the surveillance, but everything. San Francisco. The setup. The photograph. All of it. But more than that, something had changed between him and Elena. Something fundamental. The lines they had been so careful not to cross had been erased. Whatever came next, they would face it together. He was certain of that now. Richard Vance was arrested at JFK International Airport 43 minutes after the FBI received Elena's call. He had made it through security and was waiting at his gate when 2 federal agents approached him. According to the report, Marcus read later, Vance had smiled at first, the confident smile of a man who believed his money and connections could fix anything. The smile disappeared when they showed him the warrant. 18 counts of illegal surveillance, 12 counts of computer fraud, 6 counts of stalking, and 1 count that made Marcus's hands shake when he read it: attempted blackmail of a corporate executive. The evidence was overwhelming. The device recovered from Vance's office contained not just footage of Elena, but detailed notes, plans, timelines, a meticulous record of a man who had spent 18 months building a trap, waiting for the perfect moment to spring it. The day Marcus had walked into room 58A wasn't random. It was calculated. Vance had been watching Elena's schedule for months, knew exactly when she would be vulnerable. He had created the fake work order, manipulated the security systems, and sent an unsuspecting maintenance worker into the room at precisely the right moment. The goal had been simple: get compromising footage, use it to force Elena off her own board, take control of the company she had built from nothing. When that plan failed, when Elena hadn't crumbled, when the photograph hadn't destroyed her, Vance had panicked. The flight to Geneva was a last-ditch attempt to escape before his house of cards collapsed. He didn't make it. The news broke 3 days later. Every major outlet ran the story: billionaire board member arrested for stalking and blackmail. The coverage was brutal. Vance's face was everywhere. The silver-haired executive who had seemed so charming, so trustworthy, revealed as something far darker. Elena watched the coverage from her office with Marcus beside her. Her face was calm, but he could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands gripped the armrests of her chair. "How do you feel?" he asked. "I don't know." Her voice was quiet. "I've imagined this moment for 3 years. Him being exposed. The world knowing what he really is." She paused. "I thought it would feel like victory. It doesn't. It feels like—" She searched for the word. "Relief. And exhaustion. And something else I can't name." Marcus understood. Justice wasn't the same as healing. Catching the monster didn't erase what the monster had done. "The FBI wants to interview you again tomorrow," he said. "About San Francisco." Elena closed her eyes. "I know. You don't have to do it alone. I can be there, if you want." She opened her eyes and looked at him. Really looked the way she had that first day when she was deciding whether to believe him. "You'd do that?" "I'd do anything," Marcus said simply. "You know that by now." Elena reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were cold, trembling slightly. "I've never told anyone the full story," she said. "Not the police, not my therapist, not anyone. I told the board the broad strokes, but the details—" Her voice caught. "The details I've kept locked away for 3 years. You don't have to tell me." "I want to." She squeezed his hand. "I'm tired of carrying it alone. I'm tired of the weight." So she told him. She told him about the conference in San Francisco, the keynote speech she had been so proud of, the shared changing area that was supposed to be private, the moment she realized she wasn't alone. She told him about Richard Vance, the charming smile, the hand on her arm that had seemed friendly at first, the way his grip tightened when she tried to leave, the things he had said, calm, reasonable, terrifying, about what she owed him, about what he was going to take. She told him about the struggle, the way she had fought back, the bruises that had lasted for weeks, the moment she finally broke free, running out of the room with her dress torn and her heart pounding. She told him about the aftermath, the decision not to report it, the shame she still carried even though she knew intellectually that none of it was her fault, the nightmares that came for months, the way she flinched at unexpected sounds, avoided closed spaces, built walls so high that no one could ever get close enough to hurt her again. By the time she finished, tears were streaming down her face. She didn't wipe them away. Marcus held her hand through all of it. He didn't interrupt, didn't offer platitudes or solutions. He just listened. When she was done, the silence stretched between them. Heavy. Sacred. Thank you, Marcus said finally. Elena blinked. For what? For trusting me. He lifted her hand and pressed it to his chest over his heart. For letting me in. You're the first person I've told, the whole truth. She let out a shaky breath. I didn't think I could. I thought if I said it out loud it would break me. But it didn't. No. She almost smiled. It didn't. Marcus pulled her close. She came willingly, her head resting against his shoulder, her body fitting against his like it belonged there. You're not broken, he murmured into her hair. You never were. You're the strongest person I've ever met. I don't feel strong. That's how I know you are. He held her tighter. Strong people never feel strong. They just keep going anyway. The FBI interview happened the next morning. Elena walked into the federal building with her lawyer on one side and Marcus on the other. The agents were professional, thorough, compassionate. They asked detailed questions about San Francisco, about the surveillance, about everything Vance had done. Elena answered every question with her voice steady and her chin high. When it was over, the lead agent, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes, pulled Elena aside. What you did today took courage, she said. I've worked these cases for 15 years. Most victims never come forward, never tell anyone. The shame keeps them silent. I was silent for 3 years, Elena said. But you're not silent now. The agent handed her a card. We're going to put him away, Miss Ashford. For a very long time. I promise you that. Elena looked at the card, then tucked it into her pocket. Thank you, she said, for believing me. The agent smiled. That's the easy part. The hard part is believing yourself. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of legal proceedings, press conferences, and corporate restructuring. The board issued a formal apology to both Elena and Marcus. 3 board members who had been particularly vocal about the photograph resigned in disgrace. Harrison Wells, the vice chairman who had first presented the image, was quietly forced out. Through it all, Marcus stayed by Elena's side. He wasn't her bodyguard. She had a team of professionals for that. He wasn't her assistant. She had Thomas Chen and a dozen others handling the day-to-day operations. He was something else. Something harder to define. A partner. A confidant. A steady presence in the chaos. Ruth noticed the change immediately. You're different, she said one evening when Marcus came to pick up Sophie. Lighter. Like something that was weighing you down has finally lifted. A lot has happened, Mom. I've seen the news. That man they arrested, he's the one who set you up. Yeah. Ruth studied him with her sharp eyes. And the woman? The one they say he was stalking? Marcus didn't answer, but his face must have given something away because Ruth's expression softened. You care about her, she said. It wasn't a question. I do. Does she care about you? I think so, yeah. Ruth was quiet for a moment. Then she reached out and took his hand. Sarah would want you to be happy, she said. You know that, right? She wouldn't want you to spend the rest of your life alone. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I know. Then stop looking so guilty about it. Ruth squeezed his hand. You're allowed to love again, Marcus. It's not a betrayal. It's just living. Sophie was waiting by the door when he came to get her. She had her backpack over one shoulder and her sketchbook under her arm. Daddy, look what I made. She held up a drawing. A castle. She always drew castles, but this one was different. There were 3 figures standing in front of it. A tall man with brown hair, a little girl with pigtails, and a woman with long dark hair and a crown. That's us, Sophie explained, pointing. That's you, and that's me, and that's Elena. Marcus's heart clenched. Why did you put Elena in the picture, sweetheart? Because she's our friend now. Sophie looked up at him with her mother's green eyes. And friends belong in castles together. That's the rule. Marcus knelt down and hugged her tight. Yeah, he said softly. That's the rule. Elena called him that night after Sophie was asleep. I have news, she said. The preliminary hearing is scheduled for next month. Vance's lawyers tried to get it pushed back, but the judge denied them. That's good. It's more than good. The prosecutor thinks they'll add charges. Apparently they found evidence of similar behavior with at least 2 other women. He's been doing this for years. Marcus felt sick. 2 other women. Maybe more. They're still investigating. Elena's voice was tired. I keep thinking if I had reported it 3 years ago, if I had spoken up sooner, maybe... Stop. Marcus's voice was firm. Don't do that to yourself. You didn't create him. You didn't make him this way. The only person responsible for his actions is him. I know. Logically, I know. She paused. But it's hard to believe it. Sometimes. That's what I'm here for. Marcus lay back on his bed phone pressed to his ear. To remind you, as many times as you need. Elena was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. I miss you. I saw you 6 hours ago. I know, I still miss you. Marcus smiled in the darkness. I miss you too. Come to dinner tomorrow, you and Sophie. I found a restaurant with really good pasta and a dessert menu Sophie will love. Elena, I know it's fast. I know there are complications. I know our worlds are different and people will talk and none of this makes sense on paper. She took a breath. But I don't care about any of that anymore. I've spent 3 years hiding and I'm done. I want to live. I want to be happy. And you... Her voice cracked. You make me happy, Marcus. You and Sophie. You make me feel like maybe I can have something I never thought I'd have. What's that? A family. The word hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Dinner, Marcus said finally. Tomorrow, 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, Elena repeated. He could hear the smile in her voice. Don't be late. The restaurant was in a quiet neighborhood downtown, the kind of place that didn't have its name on the door. Elena was waiting when they arrived, dressed simply in jeans and a sweater, more casual than Marcus had ever seen her. Sophie ran to her immediately. Elena, I brought my sketchbook. I want to show you the new dragon I drew. I want to see it. Elena knelt down and hugged her. But first, I hear there's chocolate cake on the menu. Think we should investigate? Sophie's eyes went wide. Chocolate cake. The biggest slice you've ever seen. They ate pasta and garlic bread and too many appetizers. Sophie showed Elena her drawings, the dragons, the castles, the unicorns with swords. Elena listened to every explanation with complete attention, asking questions, making suggestions, treating Sophie's art like it mattered. Because to her it did. Watching them together, Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. Something that had been locked away since Sarah died. Hope. Real hope. The belief that maybe life could be good again. That happiness wasn't just something that happened to other people. After dinner, Sophie fell asleep in the car on the way home. Marcus carried her up to the apartment and tucked her into bed, then stood in the doorway, watching her sleep. His phone buzzed. Elena. Thank you for tonight. Marcus. Thank you. Sophie hasn't stopped talking about the chocolate cake. Elena. She's wonderful. You both are. Marcus hesitated, then typed. I meant what I said. I'm not going anywhere. Elena. I know. That's what makes this different. That's what makes it real. He was about to respond when another message came through. Elena. I'm scared, Marcus. Not of Vance, not of the trial. I'm scared of this. Of us. Of wanting something so much and not knowing if I deserve it. Marcus. You deserve everything. You deserve happiness and peace and love. All of it. Elena. How do you know Marcus thought about the question for a long moment? Then he typed, "Because I've watched you. The way you treat Sophie. The way you treat me. The way you faced down a boardroom full of people and told the truth when lies would have been easier. You have more courage and more heart than anyone I've ever met." He paused, then added, "You're not the broken woman you think you are. You're the woman who put herself back together. That takes more strength than anything else." The reply came slowly. "Elena, I want to believe that. Marcus." "Then believe it. And on the days you can't, I'll believe it for you." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, Elena, "I think I'm falling in love with you." Marcus stared at the screen. His heart was pounding. He typed back, "I know I'm falling in love with you." No response for a long moment. Then his phone rang. "Hi," Elena said. Her voice was thick. "I didn't want to say this in a text." "Say what?" "I'm not falling anymore." She paused. "I've already fallen, completely. It terrifies me." "Why?" "Because the last time I let someone in, they destroyed me. And you—" Her voice broke. "You could destroy me too, Marcus. You have that power, and I'm trusting you not to use it." Marcus closed his eyes. He understood what she was saying, the risk she was taking, the walls she was tearing down. "I will never hurt you," he said. "I promise you that. On my daughter's life, on Sarah's memory, on everything I hold sacred, I will never hurt you." Elena let out a breath that was half sob, half laugh. "I believe you," she whispered. "I actually believe you." "Good." Marcus smiled in the darkness. "Because I meant every word." The trial came faster than anyone expected. Vance's lawyers tried every trick in the book, delays, motions, challenges, but the evidence was too overwhelming. The judge set a date for the end of the month. Elena testified on the 3rd day. She walked into that courtroom with her head high and her shoulders squared. Marcus watched from the gallery, his hands clasped tight in his lap. Thomas Chen sat beside him, along with Ruth, and because Sophie had insisted the little girl herself on her best behavior. The prosecutor walked Elena through everything: San Francisco, the surveillance, the photograph, the years of silence, and the decision to finally speak. Vance's defense attorney tried to rattle her, tried to imply she had exaggerated, misremembered, invented, tried to paint her as a scorned woman seeking revenge. Elena didn't flinch. "Mr. Vance assaulted me in San Francisco 3 years ago," she said, her voice steady. "He stalked me for 18 months. He tried to destroy my career and my reputation. Those are facts. I don't need to invent anything. The truth is damning enough." The jury was out for 4 hours. When they came back, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty, on all counts. Elena didn't cry, didn't collapse. She just sat there very still as the word echoed through the courtroom. Guilty. It was over. After 3 years, it was finally over. Marcus found her in the hallway afterward, surrounded by lawyers and reporters and well-wishers. Their eyes met across the crowd. Elena said something to her lawyer, then pushed through the throng until she was standing in front of him. "We did it," she said. "You did it," Marcus corrected. "You faced him. You told the truth. You won. I couldn't have done it without you." She took his hand right there in the hallway in front of everyone. "You know that, right? None of this would have happened if you hadn't opened that door." "The wrong door?" Marcus said, smiling slightly. "No." Elena shook her head. "The right door. The only door that mattered." She stepped closer. The reporters were watching. The cameras were flashing. But Elena didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she just didn't care anymore. "I love you," she said, simply, clearly, without hesitation. Marcus felt his heart swell. "I love you too," he said. And right there in the courthouse hallway, with the world watching, he kissed her. The flash of cameras was blinding. The murmur of the crowd was deafening. But Marcus didn't hear any of it. All he heard was Elena's breath catching. All he felt was her hands gripping his jacket. All he knew was that after 3 years of silence and fear and hiding, she was finally free. They both were. The photograph of their kiss made the front page of every major newspaper the next morning. Billionaire CEO and maintenance worker. A love story, born from scandal. The headlines ranged from celebratory to salacious. But Elena didn't care. For the first time in her life, she didn't care what the world thought. Marcus found her in her office early before anyone else arrived. She was standing by the window, a newspaper in her hands, a small smile on her face. "Have you seen this?" She held up the front page. The photograph showed them mid-kiss, Elena's hands gripping his jacket. Marcus's arms wrapped around her waist. "We're famous. Infamous, maybe." Marcus crossed the room and stood beside her. "Are you okay with this? The attention?" "I spent 3 years hiding." Elena set down the newspaper and turned to face him. "Hiding from Vance. Hiding from my trauma. Hiding from anyone who might get too close." She reached up and touched his face. "I'm done hiding. Whatever comes next, I want to face it in the open. With you." Marcus covered her hand with his own. "The board won't be happy, a CEO dating a maintenance worker. You're not a maintenance worker anymore." Elena's eyes sparkled. "You're the head of security technology for the executive wing. Remember, I promoted you." "Still, people will talk. Let them." She stepped closer. "I've spent my whole life worrying about what people think. Where did it get me alone? Afraid. Building walls so high I couldn't see over them." She shook her head. "I'm not doing that anymore. I'm choosing happiness. I'm choosing you." Marcus pulled her close. She came willingly, fitting against him like she belonged there, like she had always belonged there. "Sophie drew another picture," he said into her hair, "of the 3 of us, in a castle. She told me." Elena's voice was soft. "She said friends belong in castles together, that it's the rule. She's 7. She makes up rules constantly." "I like her rules." Elena pulled back enough to look at him. "I like her. I like who I am when I'm with her, with both of you." The morning light was golden through the window. For a moment they just stood there, holding each other, letting the silence say what words couldn't. Then Elena's phone rang. "That'll be legal," she said with a sigh. "Post-trial paperwork. It never ends. Go. I'll see you tonight. Dinner at Ruth's." Elena smiled. "Your mother invited me. Apparently she wants to interrogate me properly." Marcus groaned. "She means well." "I know she does. That's why I said yes." Ruth's apartment smelled like pot roast and fresh bread when they arrived. Sophie raced ahead, bursting through the door with her usual enthusiasm. "Grandma, we're here. Is dinner ready? I'm starving." Ruth appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on an apron. Her eyes went immediately to Elena, standing slightly behind Marcus with an uncertain expression. "So," Ruth said, "you're the one." "Mom," Marcus started. "Hush. I'm talking to her." Ruth stepped forward, studying Elena with the sharp eyes that had seen through every lie Marcus had ever tried to tell. "You're prettier in person than on TV." "Thank you, I think." That wasn't entirely a compliment. Ruth's expression was unreadable. "Pretty women break hearts. I've seen it happen." "Mom, that's not fair." "I said hush." Ruth held up a hand, her gaze never leaving Elena's face. "My son has been through enough. He lost his wife. He's raised that little girl alone. He's worked himself half to death trying to give her a good life." Her voice hardened. "If you're going to be part of that life, I need to know you're serious. That this isn't some fling, some distraction." Elena didn't flinch. She met Ruth's gaze steadily. "Mrs. Webb, I've spent 3 years building walls to keep people out. Your son is the first person who made me want to tear them down." She paused. "I don't take that lightly. I don't take him lightly. And I certainly don't take Sophie lightly. Pretty words. They're the truth. Elena's voice was firm. I know our worlds are different. I know people will judge. I know it won't be easy. She glanced at Marcus, then back at Ruth. But I've done easy. Easy is lonely. Easy is safe. Easy is watching life happen from behind a window instead of living it. She took a breath. I love your son. I love your granddaughter. And I'm not going anywhere unless they ask me to leave. Ruth was silent for a long moment. Marcus held his breath. Then Ruth smiled. It was small, but it was real. Good answer. She stepped forward and took Elena's hands. Welcome to the family, dear. Now come help me set the table. Marcus burns everything he touches in a kitchen. That's not true, Marcus protested. The Thanksgiving turkey of 2019 says otherwise. Ruth was already pulling Elena toward the kitchen. Come, we have much to discuss. Marcus watched them go, something warm spreading through his chest. Sophie tugged at his sleeve. Daddy, is Elena going to be part of our family now? Would you like that, sweetheart? Sophie nodded vigorously. She listens when I talk, and she likes my drawings, and she makes you smile. She grinned up at him. You smile a lot now, Daddy, like before. Marcus knelt down and hugged her tight. Yeah, he said. I smile a lot now. Dinner was chaos in the best possible way. Ruth grilled Elena about everything, her childhood, her education, her company, her intentions. Sophie interrupted constantly with stories about school and drawings and the puppy she wanted. Marcus watched it all unfold with a sense of wonder. This was what family felt like. Real family. Messy and loud and imperfect and absolutely, completely right. After dinner, while Ruth and Sophie were clearing plates, Elena stepped out onto the small balcony. Marcus followed her. Surviving, he asked. Your mother is terrifying. Elena leaned against the railing. I negotiate billion-dollar deals. I face down hostile boardrooms, but that woman in there, she could make me confess to crimes I didn't commit. Marcus laughed. She likes you. How can you tell? She gave you a second helping of dessert without asking. That's her seal of approval. Elena shook her head, smiling. I can't remember the last time I had a meal like this. With family. With people who actually wanted me there. She paused. Not for my money or my connections. Just for me. That's what family is supposed to be. I wouldn't know. Her voice was quiet. My mother died when I was 8. My father when I was 12. I was raised by nannies and boarding schools. The closest thing I had to family dinners was corporate events. Marcus moved closer, sliding an arm around her waist. You have family now, he said, if you want it. Elena turned to face him. Her eyes were bright in the evening light. I want it, she whispered, more than I've ever wanted anything. Marcus kissed her, soft, slow, a promise more than a passion. When they pulled apart, Sophie was standing in the doorway, watching them with a gap-toothed grin. Grandma says you're being gross, she announced. But I think it's nice, like in the movies. Go tell Grandma we're coming, Marcus said. Sophie skipped back inside, giggling. Elena watched her go with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. She's amazing, Elena said. You've done such a good job with her. She raised herself mostly. I just tried not to mess it up. That's not true. Elena shook her head. You gave her stability, love, a home. After everything you went through, losing Sarah, working 2 jobs, trying to keep it all together, you gave her exactly what she needed. I gave her what I could. You gave her everything. Elena's voice was fierce. Don't diminish that. Don't diminish yourself. Marcus didn't know what to say, so he just held her there on the tiny balcony of his mother's apartment, while the sounds of family drifted through the open door. The months that followed were a study in balance, 2 worlds that shouldn't have fit together somehow fitting. Elena spent more time at Marcus's apartment than at her own penthouse. She said she liked it better. The worn couch, the crayon drawings taped to the refrigerator, the sound of Sophie laughing at cartoons in the morning. The penthouse was beautiful, but it was empty. Marcus's apartment was alive. Sophie adapted with the easy resilience of children. Elena became a fixture in her life, helping with homework, attending school plays, listening to endless stories about best friends and worst enemies, and everything in between. She asked me to braid her hair yesterday, Elena told Marcus one evening, her voice full of wonder. No one's ever asked me to braid their hair. Did you know how? I watched a YouTube tutorial 3 times. She laughed. It was terrible. Completely lopsided. She said she loved it. Marcus felt his heart swell. This was what healing looked like. Not a dramatic transformation, but small moments. Tiny victories. The gradual building of something beautiful from broken pieces. Elena's therapy sessions continued. So did the nightmares, though they came less frequently now. Some nights Marcus would wake to find her sitting up in bed, her breathing rapid, her eyes distant. He learned to recognize the signs, learned what helped and what didn't. Talk to me. He would say, his hand on her back, his voice calm. Tell me where you are. And she would. She would describe what she saw, what she felt, and slowly, with his help, she would find her way back. You're getting better at this, she said one morning after a particularly rough night. The grounding thing. The talking me through it. I've been reading. Marcus poured her a cup of coffee. There are books, websites, support groups for partners of trauma survivors. Elena stared at him. You've been researching? Of course. You think I was just going to wing it. He set the coffee in front of her. You're dealing with something serious. The least I can do is understand it. Her eyes filled with tears. No one's ever... I never expected... Hey. Marcus sat beside her and took her hands. This is what partners do. We show up. We learn. We adapt. He kissed her forehead. You're not alone in this anymore. That's the whole point. Elena didn't respond. She just wrapped her arms around him and held on like he was the only solid thing in a world that had been shifting beneath her feet for years. Richard Vance was sentenced on a cold Tuesday in December. 42 years in federal prison, with no possibility of parole for the first 20. The judge cited the severity of the crimes, the premeditated nature of the stalking, and the profound impact on the victim. Elena attended the sentencing. Marcus was beside her, along with Thomas Chen Ruth, and against his better judgment Sophie, who had insisted on being there for support. When the judge announced the sentence, Elena didn't react. She sat perfectly still, her face calm, her hands folded in her lap. Vance turned to look at her as the guards led him away. Their eyes met across the courtroom. Elena held his gaze. No fear, no anger, just a steady, unflinching stare that said everything words couldn't. I survived you. I beat you. You have no power over me anymore. Vance looked away first. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Elena held up a hand, and the crowd fell silent. I have a brief statement, she said, and then I'd like to be left alone. She cleared her throat. 3 years ago, I was assaulted by someone I trusted. I didn't report it. I didn't tell anyone. I buried it and tried to move on. Her voice was steady, but Marcus could see her hands trembling slightly at her sides. For a long time, I believed that silence was strength, that hiding my pain made me stronger. She paused. I was wrong. A murmur ran through the crowd. Silence isn't strength. Silence is just silence. It doesn't protect you. It doesn't heal you. It just keeps you trapped in the same moment, reliving the same pain over and over again. Elena looked directly into the cameras. If you're watching this, and you've been through something similar, if you've been hurt by someone you trusted, if you've been keeping a secret that's eating you alive, I want you to know that you're not alone. And I want you to know that speaking up isn't weakness. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do, but it's also the only way to be free." She took a breath. "I'm free now, finally. And I want everyone who's still trapped to know that freedom is possible. You just have to take the first step." She turned away from the microphones. Marcus was waiting with an umbrella. It had started to rain, and Sophie was holding a sign she had made that morning. It read, "You're brave." Elena with a drawing of a unicorn holding a sword. Elena laughed when she saw it. Actually laughed bright and real. "Did you make that?" she asked Sophie. "Daddy helped with the letters, but I drew the unicorn myself. It's perfect." Elena knelt down and hugged her. "You're perfect." They walked to the car together, the three of them, while cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions. Marcus held the umbrella over Elena and Sophie, getting soaked himself, not caring at all. This was his family now. This was his life. He wouldn't trade it for anything. 6 months later, Elena asked Marcus to marry her. They were at the restaurant, where they'd had their first family dinner, the one with the good pasta and the chocolate cake Sophie loved. It was supposed to be a celebration of Sophie's 8th birthday, but Elena had other plans. She waited until after the cake, after the presents, after Sophie had run off to show the waitress her new art supplies. Then she reached across the table and took Marcus's hand. "I need to ask you something." Marcus looked at her. She was nervous. He could see it in the way she was gripping his fingers, in the slight tremor in her voice. "Okay." Elena took a deep breath. "I've spent my whole life thinking I didn't need anyone, that I was better off alone. Safer." She shook her head. "But then you opened that door, the wrong door, and everything changed." Marcus felt his heart start to pound. "You showed me what it means to trust someone, to let someone in, to believe that maybe, just maybe, I deserve to be happy." Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "You and Sophie, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I don't want to spend another day not knowing if you'll be there tomorrow." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small box. "Marcus Webb." Her voice was shaking now. "Will you marry me?" Marcus stared at the box, then at her, then at the box again. "You're supposed to say something," Elena whispered. "The silence is killing me." Marcus laughed. It burst out of him, unexpected, joyful. "Yes," he said. "God, yes. Of course, yes." Elena's face broke into the most beautiful smile he had ever seen. She opened the box. Inside was a simple band, platinum elegant, and slid it onto his finger. "I had it sized based on a ring I found in your apartment," she admitted. "I hope that's not creepy." "Little bit creepy." Marcus was grinning so hard his face hurt. "I don't care." He pulled her across the table and kissed her. The other diners started to applaud. Sophie came running back, saw what was happening, and let out a shriek of joy that probably broke windows 3 blocks away. "Does this mean Elena's going to be my mommy now?" she asked, bouncing up and down. Elena looked at Marcus. He looked at her. "Only if you want that, sweetheart," Elena said carefully. "I would never try to replace your real mommy. But I would love to be part of your family, if you'll have me." Sophie threw her arms around Elena's neck. "I'll have you," she said, "forever and ever and ever." The wedding was small. Just family and close friends gathered in Ruth's backyard on a warm day in June. Sophie was the flower girl, scattering petals with more enthusiasm than precision. Thomas Chen served as Marcus's best man. Elena's assistant, a woman who had been with her for 15 years, stood as her maid of honor. Ruth cried through the entire ceremony. Happy tears, she insisted. The happiest tears. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, Sophie raised her hand. "I object to Daddy wearing that tie," she announced. "It's ugly." The entire gathering burst into laughter. Marcus looked down at his tie, a gift from Ruth, admittedly not his style, and shrugged. "She's not wrong," he admitted. Elena laughed, too bright and free, the sound of someone who had finally learned to let go. They exchanged vows. Simple words, but Marcus meant every one. To love, to honor, to protect, to stand beside her through darkness and light, fear and joy for as long as they both lived. Elena's vows were longer. She talked about walls and doors and the courage it took to let someone in. She talked about Marcus opening the wrong door and finding her at her most vulnerable. She talked about how that moment, that terrible, embarrassing, life-changing moment, had been the beginning of everything good. "You didn't just find me," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You saved me, not from Vance, not from the trial. You saved me from myself, from the prison I had built around my own heart." She squeezed his hands. "I promise to spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that, of you, of the family we're building together." When the officiant pronounced them married, Sophie cheered louder than anyone. "Does this mean I can call you Mom now?" she asked Elena afterward, chocolate cake smeared across her chin. Elena knelt down to her level. "You can call me whatever feels right," she said. "Mom, Elena, supreme ruler of the universe. I'll answer to any of them." Sophie giggled. "Mom sounds good." "Mom it is then." Marcus watched them, his daughter and his wife holding hands, laughing together, and felt something click into place. The last piece of a puzzle he hadn't even known he was solving. This was what happiness felt like. Real happiness. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of love strong enough to carry you through it. Later that night, after the guests had gone, and Sophie was asleep in Ruth's spare bedroom, Marcus and Elena stood on the balcony of his apartment. Their apartment now. They had decided to keep it at least for a while. The penthouse could wait. This was home. "A year ago I didn't know you existed," Elena said quietly. "I was just surviving. Going through the motions, hiding from everything and everyone. And now?" She turned to look at him. The moonlight caught her face, softened her features. "Now I'm living, actually living, for the first time since I can remember." Marcus pulled her close. She fit against him perfectly the way she always did. "No more hiding," he said. "No more hiding," she agreed. They stood there in comfortable silence, watching the city lights spread out below them. Somewhere out there, people were fighting and loving and grieving and hoping. Somewhere out there, another woman was hiding her pain, building walls, believing she was safer alone. Maybe she would find her way out too. Maybe someone would open the wrong door and change everything. "I've been thinking," Elena said suddenly. "About what?" "About starting a foundation. For survivors. A place where people can find resources, support community." She paused. "A place where they don't have to hide." Marcus looked at her. "That's a big undertaking." "I know, but I have the resources. And now I have the courage." She met his eyes. "You gave me that. You and Sophie. You made me brave enough to stop surviving and start fighting back. You were always brave. You just forgot for a while." Elena smiled. It was the smile he loved most, soft, unguarded, completely real. "Maybe," she said. "But you reminded me, and I want to do the same for others." Marcus kissed her forehead. "Then we'll do it together." Together. She said the word like it was new, like she was still getting used to it. "I like the sound of that." They stayed on the balcony until the moon set, and the first hints of dawn began to lighten the sky. Then they went inside to their home, to the life they were building day by day. A year ago, Marcus Webb had been invisible. A maintenance worker fixing broken things, raising his daughter alone, asking nothing from the universe but stability. A year ago, Elena Ashford had been trapped, a prisoner of her own fear, hiding behind walls so high she couldn't see over them, surviving, but never living. Then Marcus opened a door. The wrong door. And everything changed. It wasn't a fairy tale. There were still hard days ahead, nightmares that wouldn't fade completely, scars that would never fully heal. The messy, complicated work of blending two lives, two worlds, two wounded hearts. But they would face it together. All of it. The darkness and the light. The fear and the hope. The breaking and the healing. because that was what love meant. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of someone willing to walk through the pain beside you. Not perfection, but partnership. Not happily ever after, but happily right now in this moment with this person building something real one day at a time. Sophie's drawing still hung on the refrigerator. The castle, with 3 figures standing in front of it. The princess, the knight, and the little girl who had brought them together. Friends belong in castles together. That's the rule. Marcus looked at that drawing every morning. It reminded him of the truth he had learned the hard way. Sometimes the wrong door leads exactly where you need to go. Sometimes the mistake that could ruin your life turns out to be the beginning of the best thing that ever happened to you. Sometimes you find your family in the last place you expected. And sometimes, if you're very, very lucky, you get a second chance at happiness. Marcus Webb had opened the wrong door, and on the other side he found everything he never knew he was looking for.